Today in the shop we had to deal with the fact that the weather was terrible again. It rained on and off for the whole day. It was miserable. The wind was blowing. No way you could paint. So I decided to do the rest of the prep on the turbo bike and get the parts. Well, there's still two parts. Had to be done. The two big parts, in fact. And I spent the day getting them detailed out, 400 sandpaper, sanding that black automotive primer. What a job. Holy mackerel. Is that ever something? That's like stuff you should prime bridges with or something, not motorcycles. Anyway, I guess it's really hard to get a nice thin coat of that on, but we're going to pick it up from this day on, and it's going to be a lot better and a lot easier. Now today I tried to plan out a day based on the fact that it's raining all day. It's supposed to rain even tomorrow, so I'm trying to get, well, we can get Turbo Steve's, the rest of his parts prep. We're definitely not going to get any painting today, especially with the way the weather's playing out. And I'm not sure our little parts for the MT-09 are going to come in the mail today. You never know. Every day's a surprise, no Groundhog Days, and I like it that way. So this whole thing may play out to my advantage, or Turbo Steve's advantage, based on the fact that as soon as we get a paintable day, everything will be prepped and ready to go, and I can probably get a good chunk of it done in one day. But we need a paintable day. What's missing now is every day it's rain. In between rain, it's drizzling and just horrible. And this is why I try never to miss a day that I can ride, because you never know when you're going to come up upon a gap in the weather like we have now, where you can't ride, you can't paint. All you can do is drink coffee and maybe sand primer. Looks like what we're going to do today is sand the rest of the primer. Try to get those parts prepped up on the turbo project, and then wait for a nice sunny day. I don't want to be doing this, and it's the way it is out there now. It's horrible. So when we had that gap in the decent weather, I got to ride almost all the bikes. Had a great time. I was thinking summer was just around the corner, and you know what? I was wrong. This will get us highly motivated today. Time to get highly motivated. The birds look highly motivated today, eating their bread. It's a lot of work sanding these parts, but somebody's got to do it. Okay, all the farm chores are done, and it's time to make a plan. We still have to sand this piece, and we have to sand the big piece, the fairing. We're going to sand them with 400 Indasa, and it looks like it's going to be rainy all day. We got this guy done. He's ready for primer if we ever get the, well, I shouldn't even dream about it. Got the mirrors buffed out. We're waiting for our fitting. That was yesterday. We did that. That worked out great, by the way. And I guess we're going to have a day's work getting these two parts sanded down, prepped. I want to clean up around here, back mask this. Looks like the tank's pretty clean inside. It's not a rust bucket. And then I want to really take my time and do a detail sanding, get all around the edges. And this part here, now remember, these are collector bike parts. You just can't go to eBay and just find them for 10 bucks a piece. So I want to really do the best I can, and because Turbo Steve is a good friend, like everybody that I consider a friend, I like to do the best job I possibly can. Now, I thought we had Indasa sandpaper, but we have Mirka, and Mirka is just as good, I think. But we did find a thing we learned in the last month or so. Luciano found some off-brand sandpaper somewhere, and it sanded okay, but it just self-destructed in the water very quickly. So this is good quality stuff. This is, and I never try to compromise on sandpaper. Oh boy, you wind up spending 3 times as long. Now the whole purpose of the water when you wet sand is just to flush away the residue and save wear and tear on the sandpaper. It's not critical. A couple of drops of Dawn, any kind of dish detergent, seems to work pretty good. And if it's warm water, it's even better, I think. So this is a relatively complex part. I want to really be careful that I look very carefully if there's any parts need a little carbon reinforcement. Anything needs to be addressed, and it's going to get all the little details in here. I need to get all of them, all of these edges radiused, because this is a part, it's going to be a focal part that you're going to see as soon as you look at the motorcycle. And just like the day previously when we did the sanding, this primer sands, it's very, very difficult to sand relative to the stuff that we've been using, the self-etching primer and the sealer primer. This is really almost like an industrial primer, but it did the job, and so there's no problem with that. And Steve was concerned because Suzuki used black primer, but we're going to jump the system and we're going to just paint the part black once we get our paint on there. Now this is really one of the critical steps, is to get all the residue from that primer off. Once you sand it, oh, it's like mud. It's unbelievable. Now, what the final thing is though, and this is a thing I learned from John Pothier, with the rubber glove, I look for little spots that need to be addressed. And usually it's in the valleys. You see the valley here? That valley, usually you didn't get, it's hard to get your fingertips down in there unless you have a little baby pointed fingers. And I wanted to get this because that's the area where paint tends to peel up, is in a valley. If you don't get a good bond, a good etch, and I don't want to take any chances on this. By the time we're done with this, and by the time Steve puts the stickers and the decals and the clear and everything, there's going to be a lot of hours of labor in this. And so we want to have it, even these little imperfections that you don't think are going to show in the final product, I don't want to take a chance that any of them are going to show. It's just easier right now to get this all straightened out, because once you put the paint on and then you see a flaw, you've got to go back and either patch it or prime it. Now that little ditch around the windshield, that's a perfect spot where I have seen where when you paint it and you don't get a good etch there, you put the windshield on, there's a little bit of a bubble, the paint cracks, you tighten the bolts, and you got a problem. And so I'm really, and all the edges, radiusing, so important to radius all the edges, no matter what part of the project you're working on. Sharp edges is where paint peels from. And even these little things around the blinkers, it's just a thing. And I spent a lot of time off camera detailing out these parts, radiusing out the corners. This was a lot more labor than what you see on the video. And it's the kind of thing that if you don't do it, it's like you're going to build a foundation, or the kids just had a foundation for the extra room on a house. If that guy didn't put the time in and get that nice and straight, the whole project is less than it could be. And I found a few little places that needed a little extra sanding and a little extra dressing off, and all of this time is well spent because this is the foundation of the paintwork for the whole motorcycle right here. And thankfully we can get a lot of this in fast forward that you don't have to be bored to tears. But anyway, the point is, at this point in time, this is where a lot of people that I know that have become good painters, in the beginning we all try to skimp on this prep. It's just like building a foundation of a house. Everybody wants a skimp for some reason on that stuff. Now, a good example is this little gas cap area. This is an area that tends to peel and paint doesn't stick, because what happens, you put gas in a bike, and right where the paint ends and the cap begins in metal, that's a joint. And if the paint isn't bonding there and it starts lifting, it eventually walks its way out from underneath the cap. And I've seen a lot of bikes that have been painted really nicely, but they never get that area up around the cap just right. That's something that you got to put a little bit of extra time and energy in. And in the end, you don't want that paint to peel up. That's the whole thing. Now, another area, this motorcycle has rubber pads on the bottom. It has a place for a fuel gauge, place for the petcock. There's a lot of backmasking on the bottom of the tank. But again, this is one of the things, I just want to do it as good as I can. And again, I spend a lot of extra time trying to get this stuff backmasked in a way that it's not going to be a problem years later, and getting a nice neat job, getting all the sanding. Now I took a lot of extra time on this tank because I know Steve did a little bit of body work on it, and it's in really nice shape and it's not rusty. This is a part that would be really, really hard to replace if the paint starts peeling off or if something happens and whatever. So whenever you're working on a collector bike, it's just a little bit different because you just can't go to a motorcycle dealer and say, yeah, give me another gas tank. It's not going to happen. And the thing is, too, I know that from all the time I've spent doing this in my lifetime, getting a part clean, getting it sanded, getting an etch on it, and when people don't, they try to skip steps. That's what I always think of, is the death knell of everything is when you go to skip steps, you always wind up paying some terrible price down the road. And sometimes you get away with it, and you even get to where you ride the bike for a while, and then it cracks, or then it peels, or then you have something that you're not happy with, and you go, oh man, that rainy day, I could have spent another half hour, and it would have been so nice to have that done. And in the end, every one of the steps we take, if you just do everything in detail and don't go to step 2 until you're done with step 1. In this case, this was a lot of time getting this prepped, but I know in the future, everybody that ever sees this bike, if there's a bubble in it, a crack, a chip, somebody's going to see it. Same reason we fixed the fender yesterday or the day before with carbon fiber, just so that we don't have to, we at least stack the deck in our favor. Now, any paint thing is not something that's got a total guarantee. Even people with $1 million body shops have fish eyes in their paint from time to time, or a problem or something that they have to deal with, which all we ever can do, and when you do it as a hobbyist like we do, all you can possibly hope to do is stack the deck in your favor so you minimize the chance that somewhere down the road you'll be sorry you didn't do it the way you should have. And that's all we can ever do. Well, that's about all we're going to be able to get done today. It's still raining like crazy out there, so that makes that an easy decision. And we're going to hope for some better weather tomorrow. And this is pretty much the whole project now. Pretty much ready for paint work. And I'm hoping in the next day or so we can get that cooking along. And at the end of this day, I was looking at the parts carefully, and I think I've got them prepped about as good as I possibly can. And I don't think there's any area that we've shortchanged on keeping this from being a really super paint job when it's done. Now we are prepped up and we are ready, and that was a lot more work than I thought it was. Sanding this black automotive primer, this stuff is gritty, boy. It goes on like 80 grit sandpaper. I can't imagine you could ever paint it without sanding it, but they do say it's sandable primer. I guess that's the answer. Anyway, we are very confident this is going to come out beautiful. Steve has the color right paint. All we're waiting for now is weather. Now, at the end of every work day, I like to look at the workbench from a lot of different angles and just see, but try to plan out my next day or so, assuming someday the rain is going to stop. I always like to see the fruit of my labor after a day of work, and this turned out to be great. And of course, Turbo Steve has been a good friend many, many, many years. So the other thing I wanted to just mention while we have some time on the end of this video is how much I enjoy working for my friends, helping them out if I can. I'm always willing and happy to do that. And they have done many, many things for me in return. And thank John Pothia for the t-shirt logo. By the way, those t-shirts, the address to hot link to order one is in the comments. And I also have been putting it in the description, both. I don't know how they wind up being there, but hey, this is a picture my daughter took of me out in the driveway. She says she sent it to me. Anyway, I always, at the end of the day, I like to look in my photo album. These are really old pictures. This is when I had the carbon exhaust on the Suzuki. This is one of the exhausts that lasted 7, 8 years, I think, before it went bad. And I was, many, many times, I was just looking at this and trying to take pictures of it and trying to see if I liked it. And I had made that seat from scratch. These are really old pictures. And this reminds me of the good old days up at Perkins on Bear Mountain, when we used to be able to ride the park before COVID, when there was a lot of, oh my God, there was just so many adventures up there. But that has changed, and that's one of the reasons my riding has changed. And I look back at this and I remember some of these people, and not all of them, but then sometime I'll just see a picture. And I know a lot of people have commented that they really enjoy seeing these old pictures. I guess they're looking for pictures of friends or whatever. But we used to go there on at least once or twice during the week and on the weekends. And everybody that went there, we had the best time sitting under the tree. I'm sure there's one tree up there with a bench under it. Anybody will remember that. And always meeting up with new people, meeting up with new friends that we became friends with. This is an automatic bike, by the way. I don't remember what the fellow's name was, but we rode with him. That was an automatic bike. And maybe my mind is fried too, but it's an automatic Honda. And he was quite a good rider, if I remember right. And the tower up at Perkins. Now, for people that live in other parts of the country, they have memories of the area around them. But this, for people, and a lot of the people that we're friends with have friends in this area. And we've ridden together and shared stories, shared information, shared the lies we all tell. And always looking back, I'm always so glad I shot all these pictures. Because on a day like today, and I mean it is a crappy rainy day, I'm done with a long day of sanding, and it's very relaxing to look and see, and actually see the life that I've been lucky enough to have, and the friends I've been lucky enough to have, and the motorcycles we've enjoyed riding. And I don't even know that how you could put a value on that. It's a priceless thing. Now, even Joe Roselli told me he likes looking at these old pictures. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I always try to put some. If we have a day like today, there's some time I can put them on the end of the video. And I remember, this is a fella I remember with that exhaust. And this is another R1. This is the Raven model R1. This was really memories that I've kind of forgotten. There's an old R1 and a new one. And just some of the things. And you never know when you're going to stumble upon a picture that brings back a really good memory of a day you went riding with somebody maybe you didn't really know well. You wanted to share a ride, lead them through the park if they didn't know their way through the park or up in this area. Or you never know. The rides we went on with Jose where he went further north and he got lost a couple times. There's Bob's bike. That's the late Bob Gordon's bike right there. These are the things, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm dreaming or something, but I look at the pictures and every once in a while, I just stumble on one that brings back a memory. And that's why they're priceless. That's why they're priceless to me anyway. Maybe they're priceless to you too. And if they're not, obviously, that's why we have a fast forward or a delete button on our computers and phones. Anyway, I look at these on a high def TV, a big screen, and I really never look at it on my phone because, I don't know, of course I'm blind probably. That's the real reason. But I am always happy that I took these pictures. And like I said, every once in a while I stumble upon somebody. I think, oh, I remember that. That was a day we did XYZ. That was a guy that he told me he did this or whatever. And I'm sure everybody that has pictures of what I call the good old days, maybe they're coming back. Maybe now that COVID is gone, we're going to start having meetups up on Perkins again. I don't know. But one thing I do know, it was so much fun, and I am so glad that I have all these pictures. And every once in a while, I'll see a picture of somebody that I know, gee whiz, there's a guy I saw once or twice, and I miss him. I wish we'd see him again. Now, I'm just sorry that we haven't had better weather lately, but I am really itching a ride. The real riding season is not far away, and I've gotten all the bikes test ridden once this year, so I know they're all ready to go. The battery chargers are all charged up. We have to change a few tires yet and finish up a couple details on the MT-09, and we're going to be ready for what I hope is going to be a really, really nice riding season. I hope you'll enjoy sharing it with us, whether you're working on your bike or you just like to look at these rides, look at the meetups, look at some of the people that get new bikes like Turbo Steve and like Luciano, or just be part of our impromptu A-team. Even if you live in Romania, you're welcome. That's the cool thing. Everybody's welcome. We post up every day, and thanks so much for watching.